So we discussed about different entity types and relationships. So we created one data model. We created. So what we discussed in the session is basically we learned about what is a SU type 1 in a data model, okay, which represents your parent entity. We also discussed SU type 4, which represents the child entity. And we also discussed about SU type 3, which we use it as for the qualification purpose. Okay. And we also discussed about leading relationship, and we also discussed about qualifying relationship, and we also discussed about reference relationship. Okay. And we also discussed about the cardinality 1 is to n or 1 is to 1 cardinality. Okay. So these are the things that we discussed till now, and we saw different use cases, which is correct scenario, which is wrong scenario. So we had in detail discussion around this one. Okay. So the only one part that we wanted to discuss under this data model is a SU type 2. Okay. So though this SU type 2 we don't use at all, or probably out of 100 cases, you will see probably this usage is maybe limited to 1 or 2 cases. Okay. But let's understand what is a SU type 2. So this is to some extent similar to your SU type 3 only. This one also will be using it for qualification purpose only, SU type 2. But what is the difference between type 3 and type 2? That we will discuss. Okay. So what happens is, let's take example of this is your MDG system. Okay. So we have SU type 1. Okay. And we also have SU type 4. And there is a leading relationship, and the cardinality is 1 is to n. Okay. So in this case, system expects there will be some SU type 3. Okay. Which actually represents your underlying the some reference master data table, like we saw example like country or anything, wherever plants or anything, right? So that is a table that already exists, and which you maintain this table entries through some SPRO configuration. Okay. So this we will use it for the qualification purpose. Okay. Now, how do we link this table SU type 3 to this particular table? Any idea? So let me open this system. MDG central governance data model, edit data model. So our data model is ZP. Go to entity types. So we created yesterday one type 3 plant master. So this I'm talking about this particular type 3, and how I link this type 3 to the backend table using the at the type 3 level, you have something called data element. So this data element in turn linked to that particular config table through the value table setting at the domain level. Okay. So that's how basically we link. So that's how this type 3 represents this particular underlying database table, config table. Okay. Now, why? So we don't actually maintain any config table as part of this MDG. This will be pre-configured. This table is pre-configured through by any means. Ultimately, some data should be available in this table. That is through SPRO, or you write some ABAP program and load the data into this table. That is out of your MDG scope. Maintaining this table data is out of your MDG scope. Okay. But what we do is, using this table, we run through a kind of qualification process, whether whatever the data that user is entering as part of this child entity, that is available in this list or not. So that qualification purpose we use. This is the type 3 thing, right? So if you look at closely, observe this one, type 3 always refers the table that is already exist in your application layer. Okay. It can be your the standard SAP table, or it can be any Z table that you create in this particular application layer. But ultimately, this table is created and maintained outside of MDG scope. Is that clear to all?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now coming back to SU type 2. So let me draw okay, here, same thing. So we have SU type 1, SU type 4, and there is a leading relation, and the cardinality is 1 is to n. So in this case, what happens? System automatically expects the other relation, qualification relation. So this is one option. The other way is, I can also create similar to, just like how I created SU type 3, same way I can create SU type 2. Okay. You can create SU type 2, and this SU type 2, instead of referring the underlying table from application table, what happens is, for this SU type 2, whenever you create an SU type 2, your MDG framework generates one staging table. The purpose of the staging table is similar to this one. Okay, so it creates one staging table for you. Okay, now that table, this particular staging table will be represented by this SU type 2. Now you can make a qualify relationship with this SU type 2. Okay, so the only difference is, in case of if you are going with SU type 3, the table should be already available in your application layer, and the creation of this table and maintenance of this table is outside of MDG scope. Whereas in this case, if you create SU type 2, MDG framework generates one, when you activate your data model, so MDG framework generates one staging table for you. Now in this particular staging table, the data you can maintain. MDG provided some file upload mechanism, file upload, okay, which we will discuss in the UI topic or mass maintenance topic. So there is a UI SAP provided. Now using this UI, you can load the data. Now again, the data of this particular table is not part of your governance. Governance means there is no CR, nothing. Just like how you are maintaining in case of this one, the same way this table will be maintained outside of your governance process. The only difference is here, the table, instead of you create manually the table in application layer, MDG framework generates that one. And the advantage will be the SAP already provided one UI application where you can use this UI application and just load, pre-populate the data that you wanted to use it as for the qualification purpose. From then onwards, this kind of tables that you can represent with SU type 2. Okay, and you can similarly, just like SU type 3, you can make a qualification or reference relationship. That is what SU type 2. But the purpose and significance of the purpose is same with SU type 3 and type 2. So that's why many people actually go ahead, like, when if at all I need a qualification process purpose, then I can go with an existing SPRO config table, or else I will create one Z table and I load all the data required for qualification purpose into this particular table, and I go with an SU type 3. Okay, so that's how my purpose is being, it's already getting solved, right? So then there is no need of SU type 2. That's why no one actually go with SU type 2. People will go with SU type 3s only. Okay, but why SAP created? That's what, like, I mean, instead of you creating the table here, SAP will create, MDG framework will generate the staging table, and after that it also provides an UI application to pre-populate the data. Okay, so that's the reason this is an option that SAP has provided. But what I have seen that many people go with SU type 3 instead of SU type 2. But the purpose is type 2. Type 2 also similar to type 3. You can use the type 2 either for qualification purpose or for reference relationship purpose. Okay, so now if you look at the type 2, the description generated tables, database tables, which means system will generate, as I mentioned, system will generate the table, and the data into that table will be maintained or can be changed without change request. That means, see, 1 and 4 are the ones where using this 1 and 4 types, you can actually govern the master data. That is actually your application data or your master data. But 2 is just like you use it as some config table kind of thing. And how to load that data, SAP provided, MDG provided already some file upload mechanism. I'll show you how to use that one. So using that file upload mechanism, you can load the data into the system. Okay, so there is no CR process, nothing, because the data inside this generated table is not part of my master data. That is, the data I will use only for the qualification purpose. Any question? Is this clear? What is the significance of type 2?
Yes.
Okay, great. So once, okay, if you are clear with this one, so we are done with the data model part. There are few small topics that we need to discuss under the data model once the data model is created. Okay, so if you go back to this edit data model configuration, after that there is something called define business object type code. Okay, so if you notice, whenever I try to save the data model, so let me show you here. So ZP data model. Okay, if I try to save this data model, this is already saved. Okay, let me put a space. And if I try to save, okay, so this is active area thing. So you might have noticed that there is one also, I'm getting also one warning message saying that object code is not assigned. Okay, so now in this particular configuration, So now we are going to learn one new terminology that is called business object type code. And this business object type code, this one we will be using across MDG, DQM, and consolidation everywhere. Okay. So now what is this business object type code? Okay. So in MDG, so the base is your data model. So once we create the data model, okay, that's which we created the data model. After this, the next step is we will be creating one UI model or UI applications, which will be required to maintain the master data or access the master data, search the master data to perform all that UI part, right? So we will be designing these UI applications. Okay. And these UI applications are basically linked to this particular data model. Okay. Now, similarly, after that, the next we will be discussing about the CR configurations or else related to workflow related configurations for the same flow, right? So now these CR configurations and workflow configurations also is for this particular master data. Similarly, later we'll be discussing about data quality and duplicate check and all the search applications and everything. That data quality rules and everything that you build it for your the same master data. Okay. Similarly, later we will be discussing about the data replication framework that also we will be for this particular master data. So and then followed by we'll have some mass operations that also actually for this particular master data. Okay. So then we after that we'll discuss about the consolidation processes that also for this master data. And finally, we'll be discussing about the DQM, data quality management. Okay, that also basically. So now if you look at this one, this data model is the center point. Okay, on basic, I mean, based on this particular data model, you will be designing all other features for to govern or to maintain your master data, right? So everywhere, whenever you are creating a UI application, you need to specify this UI application is for which master data. Okay. Similarly, when you are building the workflow, CRs and everything, also you need to mention. So when you are building all these surrounding features for your master data, so you need to specify everywhere that these features are for which master data, right? So now what SAP has done is SAP for every master, SAP come up with some unique code. Okay. That unique code, we call it as a like OTC or BOT. Okay. So OTC stands for object type code. Okay. Or BOT stands for business object type. Okay. So either BOT or OTC. These are the two terminology that you keep on come across this kind of word, either OTC or BOT. So what is the significance of this OTC or BOT? For every object, SAP provides one unique number. Okay. So for material master, SAP assigned one unique number called 194. This is the unique number 194. And wherever you, let's say I have to link your master data for your UI application or anything, you will link not the data model, you will specify 194. Okay. So that means system, all the MDG framework understands that 194 is for material master, that is for this particular data model. Okay. So similarly for business partners, customers, vendors, cost center, profit centers, for all the masters, SAP already provided some unique object, this OTC. Okay, that OTC you can actually define over here, or business object type BOT. Okay, so now if you go to this particular configuration, okay, you can see there are like okay, this is the number for business partner. 147 is the number for business partner. For company code 154, cost center 158, customer 159. Okay. So similarly, if you go to 194, 194 is for material master. Okay. And then you have profit centers. So you can find all the standard out of box. So though you can see the very big list over here, but that doesn't mean that you have MDG has solution, master data solutions for all these objects. Okay. MDG has solution for only like BP that we discussed, finance objects, article master, and EAM objects. Okay. But SAP already created, we don't know what is the reason, but SAP already created all these OTCs for objects. Okay. So, but in that one, we already have the business object type codes for all these objects. Okay. So you can see for supplier, this is the one. So likewise, already all these business object types are already there. So now in this configuration, what we do is, okay, so what we do in this particular configuration, we create one OTC. Here we define one OTC and assign that OTC to our data model. Because ours is a custom data model. For the custom data model, there is no object type code or OTC or BOT is already there. There it's not available. We need to create. Okay. So whatever the existing, like for material master 194 is there. That 194 is already linked to data model. Okay. So I'll show you where this will be linked. Okay. So if you go to data model, under this data model, go to entity types. Under this one, if you go to material, the parent entity, at the parent SU type 1 entity level, there is something called business object type code. Okay. So this is how it is assigned. So now wherever you represent this 194 always represents this SU type 1 under this particular data model. Okay. So similarly, for business partner also, it is BP header. Here, this is the BP header is a type 1 entity. Okay. Now under this one, you will see for business partner 147. Okay. So likewise for all the standard objects, the OTCs are already created and those OTCs or BOTs are used for that objects only. You cannot use those OTCs for your object. Okay. So now for our object, we need to create one OTC. So how to create? Just click on new entry. Okay. So you can provide any meaningful one. So I'll specify ZP is our data model underscore BOT. ZP underscore BOT so that we can understand that this OTC or BOT is for our data model. So say BOT for ZP data model. So here we are just creating and assigning it to our type 1 entity. The usage part come in the UI modeling. Okay. UI modeling and subsequent other sessions follow on topics. Okay. So you just create like it's a alphanumeric and provide some description to this one. Save this. After this, we need to assign to your data model at the type 1 entity level. So go back to your data model, ZP data model, entity types, type 1. Okay. Under this, go to business object type codes. Here currently blank, nothing. So that's why whenever you are creating a data model, you'll get a warning message that business object type is not assigned. Okay. It's a warning message. So you can click on new entry. And from here, if you scroll down, you will find the OTC that we just created, ZP underscore OTC, and say this as your root object. Okay. So that's it. So likewise, your OTC is assigned to your type 1 of your data model. Save it. Okay. And there is no need to regenerate or activate your data model. So that is how basically when you create a custom data model, then only you create this OTC. When you're working on or BP or any standard data models, these OTCs or BOTs are already available, right? So wherever, when you're configuring data replication or when you're configuring the duplicate checks or data quality rules, so there you will use this OTC. Wherever system asks for the OTC, you can refer this OTC. That's it. Okay. So now in our custom data model, it's not there. So that's why we created this one. Okay. After this, there is another configuration. This you can ignore. So this configuration is also to assign your OTC to your type 1 entity. Okay. So there are two ways that you can assign. One is under the data model also at entity under data model at type 1 entity level, we assign that. That is one option. The other way is you can also assign the OTC here as well. Okay. So here you can insert a new entry and add a row for your new OTC, the data model and your type 1 entity. Okay. So you can do it over here as well. Okay. So both are same, but since we already added it at the data model level, you can ignore this configuration. Okay. After this, the next configuration is define prefix for internal key assignment. Okay. So this is whenever we create a new material, right? If you notice this, okay. So when you create a new material or something, okay. So material governance, create material. Okay. So continue. So if you notice, whenever you are creating any new material or anything, so the internal, when system generates the internal key, depends on your key settings, but along with that internal number, there will be a prefix getting added. That is a dollar symbol. Okay. So from where this prefix, so your internal number will generate this number only 169. But with that, for that number, system automatically concatenates this one. This is just to tell you this particular number is an internal number, not an external number. Okay, temporary internal key. That's why system is actually that temporary thing is specified by this particular dollar symbol. So this dollar symbol, what symbol you wanted to show, that you can actually configure over here. For material master, it is configured dollar. So that's why you see the dollar symbol. If you are trying to create a business partner, here it will add the dollar double this particular dollar symbol over there. So now, I mean, there is an option where you can change it instead of dollar to hash or something, but usually it doesn't matter. Any special, whatever is there, the special character, if that get displayed, so that is a temporary internal key. That is just for our understanding purpose. So we don't actually touch this configuration. We always leave it to the whatever is there in the standard. Okay. So, but the dollar symbol is coming from this particular configuration. That's what I wanted to show you. Okay. So after this,
what is the exact difference between type 2 and type 3?
Type 2 and
type 3.
Type 3. We discussed here, right? So what you understand here? Okay, forget about type 2. So did you understand what is type 3?
Yeah. We understand.
What is type 3? Why we use it for type 3?
So whatever the already predefined configurations, right? So for example, plant. So whatever the configuration that will not updated those type 3 values from the MDG. So just a reference that will coming from the backend S4 or ECC system.
Yeah. And we will use it for qualification purpose, right?
Qualify relationship
so for type 3, it will use the existing tables under your application layer, right? So system doesn't generate any staging tables for type 3.
Correct.
Right. Now for type 2, it's the same purpose. The only difference here is in case of type 2, system generates a staging table. Now you use this table for your qualification purpose. Okay. So in case of type 3, we link to the existing table. In case of type 2, you no need to link it to existing table. System automatically creates the staging table. Activate your data model.
Still not clear. See, when you say we can use the existing staging table, right? What exactly we are linking in type 3? We are using the same existing reference tables, right?
Are you asking about type 2 or type 3?
Between type 2 and type 3, there is a minor difference or major difference, whatever it is. So you mentioned that for type 2, we'll have generated tables.
System will generate for when you create a type 2. Okay. Right. And in the type 2 at the data element level, you mentioned, let's say, for example, country. Land 1 is your data element. Okay. By taking the data element, system will create a staging table if it is a type 2. Okay. In case of type 3, when you are specifying that land 1, system will take the underlying land 1, whatever that value table should be already available over here. So for type 3, no table generation, no staging table.
Got it. That part is understood. So only direct reference tables from active area will be used.
Yes.
Not active area from S4 will be referenced here.
Yes.
For type 2, the generated tables will be referenced in MDG.
For type 2, when you say specify type 2, when you create a type 2, right? So let me here, I go to edit data model. Let's take ZP data model. Go to entity types, new entry. I'll create, let's say, Z demo, Z SUK. So let's say Z state. Okay. Now in this one, if I choose this particular type 2 option, and if I provide a data element over here, right? So though under the data element, there is a value table or whatever it is, whether it is there or not, system automatically creates one staging table. System will create a table, and that table you have to pre-populate the data into the table, and that table you will use it as a qualification purpose or reference purpose.
Yes, I understood till that point of generating data tables and all. Okay, how we are going to use it when we are doing a custom data model? How is that generated data tables are useful when compared to the reference tables in type 3? There should be some difference.
Same purpose, right? So no, there is no difference. Okay, so now instead of referring this, in case of type 3, it refers this existing table. There might be some 100 plants, right? All the 100 plants, when you are extending a child to one plant, that plant should be part of these 100 plants, right? Here as well, If system generates this staging table, it's a one single staging table, not multiple tables. Okay. Now in that particular staging table, it's your responsibility to load all the 100 plants. You need to load 100 plants into this table.
The maintenance is from our side.
Exactly. Maintenance from your side. That's why I mentioned this file upload. SAP already provided some UI application where you
Okay.
can use this UI application to load the data. Now, once
Okay.
you load the data, whenever I'm extending the material to a particular plant, right? System will go and validate whether this plant exists in this table or not.
So this is about custom table, right? So in standard data model also you'll have type 2.
In standard also, SAP created some places, one or two places type 2 thing. But most of the time people will see. Now, ultimately, if you look at ultimately, you need one table where the data of master data will be there and you will use it for qualification purpose. I go for type 3 or type 2. It doesn't matter. Right. So that's why most of the people go for SAP type 3s. That's why even in MDG, standard MDG also SAP went type 3. But there might be some cases where if someone wants to use the data within MDG purpose, then they will actually create a type 2.
So that's what. So for as an example, if we can refer to a standard data model type 2 field, we might be able to understand better.
If you are looking for a standard in the data model, so then what happens is, let me show you. Okay, so I don't save anything over here, Okay, so there is something called type 2 over here. Okay, AWSLS. Okay, so now I'll go to. Okay, so here AW, this one. Okay, so there is a table got created. So this table has some variance key. Okay, and this particular variance key that you need to load into the system, right? I don't know whether this is a demo system, whether data is loaded or not. Let's see. So there is no data in this one, but ultimately how to
Can you please check that domain level, the value key or something, that particular data element?
Though you can see, though this is there, but system doesn't use this table for your qualification purpose. System will use this table for your qualification purpose.
What
because
is the
it's a type
advantage?
2. Sorry?
What is the advantage?
Advantage is, that's what I'm saying, right? So advantage is you have two options. Okay, one is you create a table and you load the ultimately, see, once the data is available, you can load the data. See, when you take the standard company code, language, or unit of measure, so for all these things, the underlying value table, how the data come into that value table through some configurations, right? So someone will create, whenever I create a company code plant, so all the data will be available into that value table. Okay, but when you have a brand new custom attribute where there is no configuration, there is no I wanted to have, let's say, states, all the states of a particular country. Okay, so there is no in SAP, or probably there is no way where you can actually capture, maintain all this list of states through configuration. Assume that if there nothing is such kind of value table is not available, right? So then what you do, you will create one Z table, and inside that Z table you maintain all the values, right? Then you use that value table as a qualification purpose. The same, what I can do is I can create instead of manually create that table, I can create it as a type 2, so that the same Z table will be created by SAP MDG staging table, that we call it as a staging table. Okay, now inside that staging table, I will load the data because it also provides me a ready-made UI application file upload.
But still,
Other
sorry, but still, even if you are loading it in the staging table, you'll have that responsibility to make that in sync with the reference table, right?
with what table?
With the data element reference table.
It's not necessary, right? So that's what I'm saying. In this
How come?
example,
No. We'll go one by one. So 1 second. So suppose in this case only variance key. Suppose that the reference table in SAP, the TKV01 is having some data ABC, three
yes.
values.
Mm,
I am loading in MDG as DEF.
yes.
It
Let
doesn't
me
help
write
me.
this one. Let me write this one. You have your SU type 2. Okay. Having a table. Here value is DEF. Okay, but the data element already has some value table which has ABC. Okay,
Right.
now I already created one SU type 1, and I also created one SU type 4, and I'm maintaining the data for SU type 4. Okay, so when I'm maintaining this particular data for SU type 4, because it looks for the qualification purpose this particular table. So what happens is here it will, when I enter DEF value in this particular table. Okay. So when I enter this particular value DEF into this particular table, system will go and look up into this table and this value is already there. It will
Yes.
pass my check. But if I enter a value ABC, okay, system will still go and check into this table. There is no ABC. So this validation will get failed, foreign key relation.
Correct.
Okay, so now that's why what I am saying is whenever you are deciding to go for SU type 2, in that time you have to ensure that there is no corresponding backend table. In that case only we go for type 2s. If there is a value table already available, okay, in the backend, so that's people will go with SU type 3 only to
Right.
validate this.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so you go for SU
I
type
think
2 because
I
you are right. What you mentioned, okay, in this example, if you have two separate tables and data is not synced, maybe in your MDG it is looking this value and it is passing my qualification purpose. But when this record is getting activated during your activation time, your the standard SAP application will look at the values over here, and since the DEF value is not there, your activation process will get failed over here. Okay, so that's why this is not a right design. So when you're going for SU type 2, you have to ensure that the underlying data element or value table, if there shouldn't exist any value table. Okay, it should be your plain data element with some characters or some alphanumeric or anything. So in that case, it makes sense for you to go and create a type 2. Is it clear?
Yeah, I still have a tinge of doubt, but still I think I understood it. They are both same. It's our responsibility to determine where to use what. And if we need to use type 2 somewhere, there needs to be an underlying master data is what I believe. I mean, till date I was thinking like that. And maybe it is true. I need to check more. Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
can check and get
overall,
back to me.
I understand that there is no major difference. And why we have the generated data tables for type 2 is if we are to maintain that, like suppose with Flex or something, we would need to have it
Yep,
loading data.
yep,
And if there
yep.
is any underlying master data relevant to that type 2, still it can be maintained in MDG.
Yeah, 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 that's true. Okay,
Okay.
so that's the
Yeah.
purpose. So that's why, because
Thank you.
the difference is a very, I mean, not a major difference, but at the same time, you also need to look at the underlying value tables. So that's why, just to avoid all these confusions. So when my purpose is solving with the type 3, why should I go for a type 2, right? So that's why I said I didn't introduce type 2. I just only talked about type 1, type 4, type 3, which is majorly many of the people are already in all the standard data models. You will find majorly type 3s. Okay. Type 2 is there in the initially SAP used for data model in one or two cases, but I don't think that attribute or that attribute that entity is people is used that one, or probably we don't know, that is already obsolete over there. So that's why I always recommend to go for type 3s instead of type 2. But in your custom data model, if business comes up with some kind of reference master data, okay, and for that one there is no value tables or nothing in your standard, so then you can go for a type 2 that acts as your flex. Okay, fine.
So the relation from SU type 2 to SU type 4 is always an association, or it's just a difference?
Reference and qualification, you can use, yeah, both
Yeah.
qualification and reference. How you are
Both we
using
can
type 3, type 3 you will be using for qualification as well reference purpose.
Okay.
If you use it as a qualification, it will be a primary key. If you
Primary
use
key.
it for a reference, it will be a non-key
Attribute.
attribute. Same way, type 2 to type 4, you can have a qualification or reference.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why these two are, the behavior is same. The only difference is in case of type 3, there will be a value table existing in your application layer. In case of type 2, system generates the table. That's the only difference. Okay, and there is one more difference is there with respect to type 2. What happens is, along with the staging table generation, okay, it also gives you a flexibility to attach some ABAP class, access class. That is also another added feature. Okay, so what does that mean is, so when you are actually doing a qualification with SU type 2, one is that if This access class is optional. Okay. If nothing, no access class is maintained, then it will go and directly validate the data and give you that pass that check or fail that check. Or else if you link some access class, it also gives you flexibility to do some additional logic before making ensuring that this is a valid value or not. Okay, so this kind of class also you can actually attach for your type 2s. So let me show you that. Okay, so yeah, you can see here for the type 2 entity. So there is a class associated, active area. What is this active area? MM type 2 check. So if I go to this active areas, type 2 check. So there is a class. Now inside this class, in addition to that validating, before validating the data into your staging table, you can write some additional checks as well using this one. That flexibility is there. But whereas in case of type 3, right? So if you create it as a type 3, nothing, you don't have any control whether that value exists in the table or not. If that exists, your qualification process will be successful. If that there is no value, your qualification process will get failed. But whereas here, you can write some additional logic before validating your data into the table. So that's the additional advantage that you get it with this type 2. Okay, so two differences. One is it will create a staging table and you can use it for qualification purpose. You can also link the access class, some class, and that class you can write some logic over there.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So these are the two differences. Understood? Any questions? Are we clear with this? Now you can refer always whenever along with that staging table, you can refer this class, what type of logic SAP standard SAP written for this particular entity.
So actually in SU type 3 also we have the tag 2 area in the technical settings
That
of the
will be
particular
blank.
entity
That
type.
will be blank. That will be blank. Let me show you. So we don't maintain.
It is not
So
grayed out, right? It's blank. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So it's a see at entity level, you have that field active area. So for type 3s, if you put that active area value, it will give you an error message. You can use that access class. You cannot use access class for type 3s.
Okay.
Yeah, it will give an error.
Okay.
Okay, fine. So that is one. And so sorry, I didn't see who actually asked that type 2 thing. Okay, after this, the next one is before going into this authorization one. So there is something called generate data model specific structures. So we discussed earlier, right? Whenever you activate your data model, when you activate your data model, so system will generate staging tables depends on your entity type, SU type 1 for SU type 1, for 4 and for 2s. Okay. Along with that one, it also generates some structures for every entity. And also it creates something called internal tables. Okay. So these staging tables, we use MDG underscore data model T code to see the staging tables. Now these structures and internal tables, right? So you can come and see over here. So there is a something called generate data model specific structures. So if you open this, okay, for our custom data model also, you can see ZP, go to structures. Okay, so for every entity, right, you can see here for your type 1 entity, okay, for your type 1 entity, you can see these are the entries that got automatically added. We haven't added here. When you activate your data model, automatically these entries will get added for every entity. Okay, for your type 1 entity, how many entries are got added? There are 10 rows got added. Okay. Now, these are the name of your SC11 structures. Okay, so this is the prefix, this is the suffix. So how to find how to build the name of that structure, the generated structure. So what you can do is you can take this particular name. Okay, and go to S11. The suffix is ZMDG, prefix is ZMDG star, put this name and do an F4. Search for structures. Okay, so these are the structures that automatically created. Now let's look at this structure. So this is your complete name of the structure. This is the prefix. Okay, and we maintained the prefix. If you remember at the data model level, we maintained some prefix. Let me show you. Okay, so for our data model, this is the prefix we maintained, and this prefix will be used here. Okay, so this is the prefix. Now if you open this structure, so if you look at the name of the structure, this is the prefix. This represents S represents structure, ZP represents your data model, and this represents your entity name. Okay, PP indicates it's a primary persistent. Okay, so likewise, that's why full structure name get formed, but you no need to remember this entire name. Always come over here, take this name, put star star, and in between put this name and do an F4. You will get the name of the structure. Okay, so I'll explain what is the significance of this structure. But if you open each of these structures, it will have similar to your table, whatever the table, right? Except that active or inactive indicator won't be there. Your attributes from your entity and the other created on created by and all this stuff. Okay, and it's a structure. Similarly, there will be a table as well. Okay, there you will have instead of S, you will be having T, which represents that an internal table. Okay, so likewise for every, you can see for every entity, different type of structures are there. So we took this as an example. PP, this is a primary persistence. There is another one which, so basically here you can see each of these structures are used at different scenarios. Okay, so what are those scenarios? I'll explain, right? Okay, so now I can first look at this one, mapping of reuse active area. In this case, this structure will be used. And what is this scenario? Mapping of reuse active area. Okay, so what happens is we have our MDG UI application. Okay, in the backend, you have your staging tables. Okay, and after that, you have your active area tables, right? So always this mapping of reuse active area. So this means, so basically those structures will be used to read the data from in ABAP programs, right? So you wanted to read the data from a table. What you do, select star from this so and so table into, you put, if it is a single record, you will keep it as a structure. If it returns multiple records, you put it as an into internal table, right? So that those acts as a variables to read the data or to hold the data temporarily in your processing logic. So in the same way, this structure will be used to read the data from your staging table and map it to your active area. Similarly, from active area to staging area. So this structure, whatever the structure you see, mapping of reuse active area, this structure name is PP structure. So this particular structure will be used during this process. Okay, now what happens if this particular structure is not generated, this structure is not created properly, then your activation process will get failed, because during the activation time, system will look up into that particular structure. It will read the data from staging and it will try to prepare that structure name by using all your prefix and all that stuff, and it will try to look into that structure so that it can move the data. If that structure itself is not created, your activation process will get failed. Okay, either activation process or read process and everything will get failed. So that's why this particular structure will be used in the scenarios. Similarly, there is another structure called SMT mapping for replication. So this structure will be used during the data replication time, like moving data from MDG to the target system, or in case of Flex to the same self-replication. So wherever the replication come into picture, during that time, system will look into this one. And from MDG applications, you can generate a PDF forms. Okay, so during PDF forms, this structure will be used. So that's why it always look up prepare the structure name with this prefix and your entity name and with these keywords PP or PP PDF. DRF is for data replication. Okay, ES means enterprise search. FC means field control. So these two structures, field control and field properties. So these two structures will be used when you are reading, when you are displaying the data on the UI application, right? So field control will basically have that logic to basically whether this particular attribute is a mandatory attribute or it's a read-only attribute, or it's an optional attribute, or this attribute should be hidden. So that kind of information it will control. Okay, in the process modeling, we have some configurations where you can set up this particular attribute should be read only in this scenario, and it should be optional in this scenario. It should be hidden in this scenario. So you can maintain all such kind of configurations in the process modeling, right? So when you maintain that configuration, so during when system is displaying the data on the your UI application, that configuration system will read and accordingly it will populate these field properties and field control structures, and that data will be passed to UI. So based on the field control and field property settings, the UI on the UI you will see whether this is a mandatory or it's an optional or it's a kind of read only kind of thing. So let me show you that. Okay, so I'll take this FP field properties, the structure name. So here I'll just simply replace PP with FP field property. Okay, in this field property it's a common data element. Okay, you can see for MAKTL for everything, there's a one common data element. And if you open this data element, go to that value range. Okay, you can see star indicates these are obsolete values. But let me scroll down. Okay, so wherever plus is populated, that indicates, okay, this is also obsolete. Yeah, from here onwards. Okay, in the configuration process model configuration, if you make some attribute as a optional, so system will read the configuration and it fill the structure with this value C. If I make it read only in the configuration, it will populate this value as R. And if it is a mandatory, it will populate. So depends on these values on the UI, you will see the behavior of that each attribute. So that means these are the mandatory structures that should be there. Irrespective you write the logic or not, MDG framework expects all these structures should be available for every entity. And these will be automatically created. We don't do anything. So that's why, as I said, whenever you create a staging table, activate a data model, system will generate the staging tables, it will generate the structures, it will generate the internal tables. All these we call it as a runtime artifacts. All these things should be properly created. If something is not created, you will see the impact when you create an UI application and all that stuff. So these structures should be properly created and generated. Then only when you are building the other scenarios, UI applications or replications and all that stuff. So during that time, those functionalities will behave as expected, right? So that's why as soon as you activate your data model, you can come back to this one. You can take one of these sample structure, go to this SC11, open that particular structure, okay, here, and see whether it is properly active or not. Sometimes because of some issue, it might be not yet active or it will be partially active state. Okay, so in that case, don't come and activate here directly because these are the generated ones. Okay, what you need to do is you need to come to this particular same generate data model structure configuration, select all those rows and click on generate selected structures. When you do this one, system will it will try to again regenerate all these structures. So that time if there is some issue is there, that will get usually fixed. Okay, so even it's not only for your custom data model. When you are extending data model with one new entity or BP data model with new entity, and once you activate after adding that new custom entity in your or BP data model or finance data model, right? So once you activate your data model, you need to come to this and validate whether your custom entry is added here or not. And take one of the sample structure and go to SC11 and validate whether that structure is properly activated or not. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
So this is another one that generated structures. So some actually in older releases, this won't it won't get added over here automatically. So once you activate your data model, if you are on probably MDG 7 or MDG 8 version, so if you activate your data model and you don't see any entry over here, you need to come back to this, make an entry, your data model, go to structures, okay, click on new entry and add all these rows and then generate the data model selected structures. Okay, so that is a manual activity. But from MDG 9 onwards, SAP made it automatic. So as and when you activate the data model, it will get added automatically everything. Okay, even for your standard data models also, if you open data model, go to structures, you will see for let's take material entity. For material entity also you have all these entries. There, this is the standard prefix. In our case, Z or Y prefix should be there. Okay. So this is about this generate data model specific structures. Here we don't do anything. We just validate. Everything will do under the data model, but you come and activate, validate the data over here. Okay. So this is one thing. And after that, the other configuration important one that it's important in the sense with respect to the authorization relevance. Okay. So let's look at what is this authorization relevance per entity type. Okay. So before going into this authorization configuration, so let me explain how the authorizations in MDG works. So this is your MDG and this is your ERP. Okay. Now, so in ERP, let's take, for example, you wanted to create a material. Okay. And you wanted to extend the material to plants, or you wanted to extend the material to some valuation area. Okay. For every activity, there is an authorization, a separate authorizations objects SAP provided. Okay. So what are those authorizations? I will just tell you. Can anyone recollect those authorization objects? I'm just taking you can Google it also. You will easily find it. But let me show you. For all material master authorizations, you can, the object class is mm_g. Okay. You can see here material management master data. Under this object class, you have different authorizations. Okay. So underscore BUK represents if you should have an authorization to this one, then only you can add the company codes. Similarly, warehouse related data. Similarly, some material logs. Okay. Material types, material, change material type, create material type. Okay. So likewise, you can see if at all you wanted to extend, maintain the status of materials, then you wanted to extend material to a sales organization, to a plant. So it's not one single authorization for material creation. Okay. The single authorization for material creation is this one, which will provide you to create a basic material. But you wanted to do all other sort of maintain all other information. There are multiple authorization objects are there. Okay. This entire authorization object list is you should require to create full-fledged material using MM01 or MM02. Right now, that is what this, what is that m_mat_star. So let's take m_ma_star. This is the list of authorization objects that you should have to create a materials using material master MM01. Now in MDG also, if at all I open this material creation screen, right now here, if at all I wanted to maintain the sales data, storage data, and all this stuff. Okay, so I should have it MDG also using your access class that we discussed in the at the data model level. So this access class always look up into this particular authorization objects. Okay, it will look up into this authorization objects. If you have authorization, then only it will allow you to extend or create. If you don't have such required authorizations, the system will basically, it will give through an error message. So in MDG, even same is true for your BP, customer, vendor, or finance objects. So every master data come up with its own authorization objects in your ERP layer. So if at all I'm creating a material, business partner, customer, cost center, profit center, okay, it will look up into your underlying authorization objects. Okay, so MDG doesn't come up with its own authorizations. It will be reusing the ERP authorizations. Again, this is the reason where your underlying ERP is mandatory to install your MDG component onto any system. Okay. So these authorizations, whatever these authorizations are there, right? So these authorizations, we call it as a reuse area authorizations or reuse area authorizations. Okay. So now come back to our authorizations topic. Okay. So let's take first one. Okay. What it says is here you have two options. When you are creating materials using MDG, you by default, the default setting is it will always look up to your ERP authorizations, all ERP authorizations. So in that case, all these checkboxes will be blank. Okay, that means not this checkbox. Whenever if you specify like this, what it says is MDG specific authorization. So if you specify like this, what happens is system won't look up your underlying ERP authorizations. Instead of that one, it will look up your MDG authorizations. What is that MDG authorization? I'll tell you. Okay, but assume that MDG at MDG level there is some authorization. It will look up into that authorization. It will ignore your ERP authorizations. Is that clear? So now this is the place where you can take a decision for your object. You should go with the underlying reuse or ERP authorizations, or you wanted to come up with your own authorizations in MDG layer. That kind of decision you can take it at this level. Again, this configuration, I strongly suggest not to touch these configurations for your standard objects. All
For
the standard
example,
objects, for all the standard objects, by default, the configuration is done in such a way that it will look up your underlying ERP authorizations only, not MDG authorizations. But for your custom objects, you are creating one custom object. For custom object, there won't be any authorizations in your ERP because it's a custom object. Or else maybe if you are referring one of the standard like plant master or company code, there might be some authorizations, which is fine. Okay, so for custom objects only you need to handle, but for the standard objects, don't touch this configuration. So there's some question, right? Can you repeat
yeah.
your question?
So when we clicking on the material authorization tick mark, so for example, normally basically when we creating a material, it's a material type is a mandatory and industry is something is mandatory. So if you click on this, those validation will not come while creating a material from MDG.
Authorization is different. You are talking about the validation. What is the difference between authorization and validation?
Validation is a check. Authorization is access related.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So your material type mandatory check is there. That is part of your validation, irrespective of your authorization. Okay. But even though that is mandatory, first of all, are you able to create a material or not? Depends on your authorization.
Correct.
You got it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically what I'm saying is this is with respect to authorizations. Validations comes next. First, you should have the authorization to enter into that UI and to perform that activity. Once you have that activity, access to that to perform that activity, then your validations come into picture. Is that clear?
Yeah. So if we click on this one, then what will happen while like the access level?
Yeah, if you click on this one, what happens is your MDG ERP specific authorizations won't get executed. That means if I select like this, there is a person who doesn't have your ERP authorizations. He can still go ahead and create a materials because we are bypassing your ERP authorization. System doesn't validate, right? So in that case, you need to come up with your own authorization concept or authorization strategy design for your MDG for this material master object. It is like this. Either you take the reference of underlying ERP and use that one for authorizations, or else you come up with your own design at MDG layer for authorizations. Okay. So, sorry, any question?
No.
Okay. So fine. Now, why? Okay. So now the thing is that here what it says is like you can either by default for the standard objects for by default don't touch this configuration. Okay, don't try to do any experiment as well. But now why SAP is provided this configuration if I'm not allowed to do any changes or not recommended to do any changes over here? Okay, so let me tell you one scenario. You have your data model. Under data model, you have your SU type 1, okay, which represents your material. You also have your SU type 4, which represents your plant data. You also have another SU type 4, which represents your, for example, warehouse data, okay. And there is one more SU type 4, which represents your storage related thing, okay. So now for this one, you have some M underscore, what is that authorization? M underscore mat. Okay, so M underscore mat underscore some NEU. This is the authorization object to create a material or to change a material. For this one also similarly for every object you have one authorization object M underscore mat underscore works. And this is underscore warehouse. You have some value for storage also you have some. So there are some authorization objects are already there, which is fine. We are using the ERP authorizations. Now as part of business requirement, I'm going to add one new ZSU type 4. This stores my custom attributes. Okay. So now this is a custom entity. And for corresponding to this one, probably in the backend application layer, you might be having some Z table, right? And because it's a Z table, there is no authorizations from the standard. Now you need to handle your business requirement is, hey, this particular data has to be maintained by only, let's say, for example, managers and managers. Okay. So this particular data can be maintained only by plant managers. So that is a requirement. Now, how do you control? There is no authorization object available for this one. In this case, SAP come up, SAP already provided one generic authorization object, that is USMD underscore MDAT. So the authorization object name is USMD underscore MDAT, I believe. Let me check quickly. If you do F1, yeah, USMD underscore MDAT is the authorization object. Okay. So now SAP provided this particular authorization object. Now you can make use of this authorization object USMD underscore MDAT, and that means basically for this entity you can assign MDG specific. That means you can go to this particular next one. This is at the data model level. This is at your individual entity level. Okay. At this one, assume that you already enhance with your Z custom entity. Okay. You will find that Z custom entity over here. For that Z custom entity, select this checkbox. That means when you select this checkbox, that indicates that for this particular entity, the corresponding authorization object is this one, USMD underscore MDAT. Okay. Now with this MDAT authorization object, what it has is under this one, there are some parameters are there, USMD underscore MDAT. Okay. So under this, the parameters are data model and entity, and activity. Okay. So in this case, your data model is you create one basis, security team. You can work with the security team, create a role. Security team will create a role. Under this particular role, they will add this authorization object and they will maintain these values. What values? MM is my data model and entity name is Z, some custom entity, and activity will be either depends on the requirement 0 to 0, 01, 02, 03. This is for create, for change, for display. So it depends on that one. You can play around with these values. So all these things they will actually capture under a role. Now you assign this role to the manager role. Then that manager only can maintain this data, depends on this activity. Okay. If you look at that F1 help also, okay, in the F1 help, here is this link already there here, not here. Let me go back. I just wanted to show you, or else you can find this F1 help here as well. So there's a documentation button here. It shows that USMD MDAT. So here there is something called activity, model, and your key fields. So key fields. So based along with that one, there is something called key field as well. Key field. What does that key field means? This person is responsible to maintain only for plants, 1000, 2000 plants only. So in that case, you can maintain these key fields. So that means this manager can maintain the data only for these plants. Only when these key fields are matching, then only he can maintain this data. That much of detail of the authorization check that will happen over here. Okay, key fields. So like that, if you provide this authorization object to security, they will do that one. Where they will do in the same place where in this authorization roles, we'll come back to this roles topic again. We have a separate topic. So there under MDG object class, so you will find that USMD, where is that? Yeah, this one, FMDM. Okay, so not this FMDM. You can see Master Data Governance. Under this, there is something called USMD underscore MDAT. So here you can maintain like what is the activity, add, create, change. So this talks in terms of your entity level authorization, your data model, your entity, key fields, and what authorization. So with this combination, security will generate a role and that role will be assigned. Okay. So that means there are two ways. One is you can create the authorization separator Z authorization object in your ERP layer and do these checks at your access class level. That will be very complicated process. Okay. But instead of that one, SAP MDG provided one default authorization object called USMD underscore MDAT. It works for all the data models because here, if you look at this one, it works for all the data models. Why? Because you have a parameter called data model, entity, activity, key fields. So based on this one, same authorization object can be used for all the objects, MMBP or finance or your custom objects as well. Wherever you are adding some new custom entities, you can, if you have any such kind of requirement, only that custom entity data has to be maintained by so and so persons, then you can make use of this particular authorization object. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, great.
If you want to restrict, then separate roles should be created.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, separate
Colleagues.
roles like one role create and change, one role with only display. Likewise, you can create multiple roles. Okay.
For
So-
example, requester, we need to give the two entity. For example, we created two entities, right? Type 1 and type 4. So entity level requester, we can give the both, but then when we going to the approver, we can control the approver role. They can edit one entity. That way also we can control it, right?
Yeah, if you are adding two entities, right? So then that approver or requester will have access to both the roles, both the entities.
Also we can restrict it, right? Based on the role.
Yes, yes. See, it's all about you create one role.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
That role will have what changes this person is supposed to do. And that role you will assign it to either manager or requester. Let's say, for example, you create one role 1. Okay. In this role 1, you specify the activity equal to, let's say for example, display. Okay. And your entity and data model, right? Now base security will generate this role. This role will be assigned to requester. Okay. So requester person. Okay. Now this requester can only see the data. This particular entity data under this data model, he can only see. Now you need another role at approver level. Let's say, for example, create another role 2, right? Here you specify the activity equal to 02, which in 02 or 01, add or change. Okay. Again, the same entity and same data model. Now assign this role to your manager or approver, right? So now you have a role, this role to whomever you wanted to assign, that up to your business decision.
For example, only data model they assign, that means overall entities under the data model can able to edit, right? We need to specify
so
the
in that
mandatory
case,
identity.
so that is again comes under the security. It depends on your requirement. If you are only specifying data model, what you are expecting with that?
Okay, it should be an condition. It should be an R. So it's an option for free.
No, that is fine. So what is your business requirement? All the data can be maintained, right? That's what your requirement.
Yes. As
okay.
A requester,
In that case, in that case, what you can specify? You can specify your data model ZP. Under entity, put star. Star indicates all entities.
Okay, fine, got it.
Okay, so likewise you can maintain. Yeah. So this will be done by basis, all these things. But it's good to know because basis don't know this USMD underscore MDAT is a authorization object provided for MDG, right? So you need to give it to them. They don't know they can't understand what is data model, what is entity. So that's why you can tell them that, okay, this is the authorization object available, and you specify what is the purpose of these things. Then they will how to play around with these values and maintain the creation of the role and everything that they will do. But it's a collaborative effort between MDG and the security team. That's why I wanted to touch base this roles part as well. Okay. We will again come back to this one, but the purpose why SAP provided this one, again, I'm repeating in short, don't touch anything for your standard entities, standard data models. This configuration, you can use it for your custom data models or custom entities in standard data models. Only those two cases. That too, if you have any requirement with respect to authorizations, then come and play around with this configuration. Okay, good, fine. So if you are good with all these things, okay, so the only one topic that I'm intentionally skipping here under the data model is SMT mapping. Okay, so this is basically create and edit mappings and extend mappings. So this will be used when we are talking about the data model extensions. So till now we worked on the custom data model. We have another use case where we wanted to extend either or BP or finance data model, right? So there during the data model extension, we will be using these configurations. So these will be called SMT mapping, service mapping tool. Okay. So we will again come back to this later. Okay. For now, I wanted to skip this particular topic. Okay. So with that one, we completed the data model design. Okay. And except that data model extension part, we'll come back, we'll revisit that part again. Okay. So during that time, we will be discussing data model again, BP data model, finance data model. We can review how the standard data models are designed. Yesterday we discussed, but still we can again go back to look at some of the important entities and everything. Okay, fine. So with that, now we can start the UI modeling topic. So let's do some little bit of introduction about UI modeling topic, and we can design one UI application. So in MDG, right? So there are two ways that you can actually access the data. Okay, two ways means two type of applications are there to access your master data. One is we call it as a FPM applications. FPM applications. Okay. The other one is Fury applications. Fury applications. Okay. You can access your master data. That means basically to perform any activity like create, change, search, or else perform mass operations. Okay, to see some of the change logs or all any operations that if at all you wanted to do. So the you have all different type of applications. You can actually use either of these applications to perform. Okay, so whatever that I'm accessing to create a material or to perform a search, everything, right? So that these are FPM applications. So these are FPM applications. Okay, so first we will learn about FPM applications. Okay, how MDG FPM applications look like, what is this FPM application and everything. And then we can actually, after that, we can go to the Fury applications. Okay, so now what is...
So our use cases will be starting after the theory part, right? You will help us with the hands-on because we are not starting creating the data model and the entity types, whatever further discussing, like exercise oriented.
Okay, so already we discussed, right, to start with some data models, like maybe if at all you wanted to create your data model, whatever that ZP data model I created, you can refer that ZP data model, come up with your own data models, like try to create the same. I start because always this is the best example, material and plant or material and sales are kind of, these are the best examples everyone can follow, right? Basically, ultimately you need one parent and child relationship, right? So that can happen with your material master, or you can create like a customer and maybe with the sales, or you can create with the employee master and some employee details as some child items. So there are different kind of scenarios that we can come up, but I recommend go with whatever we created ZP. It's equivalent to that one. You can also try to create maybe Z1, Z2, Z3 data models, have the similar kind of entities, attributes. Maybe you can add more attributes from and Marcy tables and more reference relationships you can add, right? So you can just do that in the system we discussed already. And if you're stuck up somewhere, we can discuss in the next day session. Is that okay?
Okay.
Should be fine, right? So you can probably start because we discussed everything. We discussed about SU type 1, 2, 3, 4, and leading qualifying reference relationships. Okay, so you can actually take any use case and start building your own data models. So follow some naming convention like Z1 or Z2, Z3, something like that. So when you're creating your data model, look at that name is not used there. You can just go ahead and create. And others, you can use already my data model, ZP data model is already there. So if you're getting into some errors, you can always open my data model and refer it up there. And on top of that one, if you're stuck somewhere, anyway, we have these daily meetings, right? So first we'll, in the first 5-10 minutes, we will first try to resolve those errors so that everyone can benefit from that particular issues. And we will start the session. Okay. So this by end of session, we will be building one UI application. Okay. So now by that time, if you complete your data model, create your own Z1, Z2 data models, and if you complete and keep it ready by end of that session, so once that UI application is completed, I will build one UI application. Then you can also parallelly build after session UI application, so that you will see the end to end, right? UI and then backend table. For that one only we can build the workflows and everything. So we will review the data model and UI model. Though I complete it, then you will have some time over the weekend to by end of this week. You can, the target is by end of this weekend, right? So if you are able to complete data model plus UI model, that would be better. These two things.
Okay.
Okay, because there is a limitation as well. If someone is working on the data model part, then others cannot edit it, right? Because it's a same configuration. So if someone is actually working on the data model, then only keep it in edit mode. If you are just only viewing this thing, go to display mode and validate, check whatever explore that you are doing, that to do that exploration. Okay, so that others can continue the work. At least if a couple of people try to create a data model by session, that would be good. We can review those data models.
Okay.
Okay.
One doubt.
Fine.
What is the purpose of this OTC and BOT?
OTC and BOT, whenever you create it uniquely identifies one master. Okay. When I say uniquely identifies one master, like for material master, there is one OTC SAP created. Okay. And for BP also, there is one OTC. For supplier master, there is one OTC. Okay. Likewise, for every master, there is one OTC. Now, what is the purpose of this particular OTC? You create the OTC and assign to your data model. And that means this OTC is nothing. Let's say 194 is for material master. So in the follow-on processes, like now I'm creating an UI application, or I'm creating the DRF configuration, or I'm creating some workflows. So in the follow-on processes, you will always link the OTC, so that this UI is for this object and this DRF configuration is for this object likewise. Okay, so that's why we create the OTC and assign it to the data model. From now onwards, we talk in terms of the OTC terminology for follow-on configurations. As of now, we haven't seen that usage of that one. But once when I'm creating the UI model, then you will understand, okay, we will link the OTC to specify this UI application is for this data model. It's basically identifies your master data uniquely.
Okay, this I understand. But is both are same or
What?
is BOT and OTC are same?
Both are same. OTC,
Okay.
I mentioned in the starting. So OTC and BOT are same. OTC is nothing but object type code. BOT is nothing but object type. That's it. Some people will call it as BOT. Some people will call it as OTC. That's it.
Thank
Both are same. Okay, fine. So now let's get back to our any other questions. Are we good to start the UI model topic? Okay. So
please.
now, yeah. So now, as I mentioned, in UI model topic, there are two type of applications are there. One is FPM applications, other one is Fury applications. Okay. So let's first focus on FPM application. Okay. So FPM stands for any guess?
Floor plan manager.
Yeah. So anyone worked on this floor plan manager earlier in HR module or in other SAP modules? In SRM, many places this is extensively used, this FPM application. Okay. So what does this floor plan manager is? Before FPM, earlier, so there is something called ABAP WebDin Pro. ABAP WebDin Pro. Anyone worked on ABAP WebDin Pro? Why we use this ABAP WebDin Pro? For what purpose?
It is also a kind of UI applications which we can design.
Yes, that's true. And what type of UI applications?
It like end user, like URL based application we can say.
Exactly, that's true. So these are browser based applications. Like you can open the application in your Internet Explorer or Chrome or thing, right? So during this time, there are two type of UI applications. One is your SAP GUI screens. So GUI screens are nothing but you can go to your MM01. All these are your SAP GUI screens, right? You cannot open this in any browser. To open this application, you need SAP logon pad, launchpad. So from this logon pad only, you log into the system and you enter the T code and you open that UI application. Okay, so that means this actually limits the usage of for the end users, the SAP applications. Right. So that's where actually SAP come up with like your Java or .NET, all these applications are browser based. So that's where SAP come up with this WebDin Pro applications long back, not recently. Okay, so these WebDin Pro applications basically used to create your browser-based applications and UI applications. Now in this kind of WebDin Pro UI application, if at all I have to create one UI application, right, which has some form like that with some fields and some actionable buttons. And if user enter this button, it should go navigate to some other UI application. From there, it should submit the data. So it's a some bunch of UI applications collectively completes one activity, some transaction, right? So in this WebDin Pro, if at all you have to build such kind of applications, you have to write lot of code to in the backend. Okay, you need to write all the code, which actually takes a lot of time to build all these kind of applications. Okay, to design and develop these applications in above WebDin Pro, everything, the events, you have to write the code, the UI layout, form layout, and to add your radio buttons, checkboxes, your text elements, drop down boxes. To for everything you need to write the code, which takes a lot of time. Okay, and the thing is that in this WebDin Pro, I will if I have to create, I have to develop one UI application, I will create in some way. Some way means, okay, my form will look like this. Okay, like this. Okay, but if someone else is creating some UI application, the UI application will have a different. Let's say their form will be something like this. Okay, so which means basically the layout, the look and feel of the application is not consistent, right? So that's why what happened is SAP come up with this kind of concept called floor plan manager. Okay, in this floor plan manager, it's a like kind of a template template in the sense, let's say in your organization now you wanted to provide some presentation to the customer. So what you do basically, you take one of the sample template that basically you use for your demos. Okay, which has some font style, some color, some background. Okay, that template, you copy the template, and in that template you work with your presentation, and then you use it. So there will be some reference template. From the reference template, everyone will copy that template and they modify that and they use it for that one. So why we are doing that one? Because all the presentations will have the same look and feel. Okay, and if you look at our initial MDG discussion, so during that time I mentioned one of the feature is the consistency. Consistency means it's not only from the process front, from the configuration front, from UI look and feel front. So in that one, the now UI model, from the UI point of view, if this FPM floor plan manager, as part of the floor plan manager, SAP provided certain templates. Those templates are nothing but like your search application should look like this. All search applications. Okay, and your create application should look like this. Your file upload application should look like this. It should follow this theme, these steps. Likewise. Okay, so they provided all these kind of templates. Now what you need to do is, you no need to write zero code. You take the template, copy the template, assign fill the required details, for the template, and just submit, save the data. Your UI application is ready. So in that case, if I take the template and a person wants to create, okay, so you have one custom data model Z1. So person A copied that template and he created one UI application. He copied the create template and prepared one UI application. Similarly, another person Z2 created a data model Z2, and he also copied the same template. Okay. Similarly, standard SAP also created the template UI applications for all the standard objects by copying the same template. So now if I look at this template or this template or this template, it remains same. The look and feel, the functionalities, everything remains same. So that is the advantage that you get. And because it's a zero code or development effort involved, it's just a kind of configurations to create a basic templates. Of course, to add some more features and everything, you need to write some ABAP logic and all that stuff. Okay, but to create the basic UI creation screens, they're absolutely zero code. On top of that one, you can enhance that, and you can write your own business logic over there. Okay, so that kind of advantages that you get it using the floor plan manager. If you create any UI, you can create the templates using the floor plan manager. So we will actually copy this template and create one UI application for our object, and we can compare the same thing with the standard material master UI application. Both look like same. Okay, so that we will see. Now with that one, first let's look at how to access your standard applications. Okay, so to access any of your standard MDG applications, all these are built up. You need to get into NWBC transaction. NWBC is nothing but NetWeaver Business Client. Okay, so enter NWBC. When you enter NWBC, okay, basically what happens is here you see all these are the different roles, the roles that are assigned to you. Okay, so now in this one, there might be like MDGF is there. MDGF means this is the finance roles. Okay, and we will discuss in detail about these roles in the security topic. Okay, so now you have an option where you can directly click on NWBC here. When you click on this NWBC, what happens is here in the top, you will see different tabs. Okay, each tab is nothing but different roles that you have. So if I go to this business, if I click on this particular tab, nothing but business partner governance role. Okay, so let it get loaded. Okay, so now this is business partner governance, and we call this as a home page. Business partner governance homepage. So what does that homepage means? This is one stop for to perform all the business partner related activities. One stop for all these kind of different activities. So from here you can search business partners. You can perform mass updates. You can use some file upload, file download mechanism. You can look at your workflows. So when you click on each this is a home page. From here, when you click on each hyperlink, it will take you to one FPM application. Okay. Now let's take, for example, I click on this search business partner, which will take me to one FPM application, that application called search application. Okay. So now this is one search application. In this search application, you can see the look and feel, right? So this search application is created from the search template. So SAP already created in FPM one template for search applications. Okay, so from that template, the standard SAP created this application. So now the look and feel is like in the top, you will have some search parameters based on, I wanted to search based on bank data, or you wanted to search based on enterprise technique or HANA search and all that stuff. After that, the second section is your parameters, based on what parameters you wanted to search. This is your search criteria. In the down, you will see the result, search result. From the search result, you can go ahead and create a new BP, or you can block a BP, or you can mark for delete BP. You can look at the change documents. You can see the replication status. You can see all the change requests. So you can perform again multiple activities. Okay. So now the same search application, if I go to material master, this is the material master homepage. Here also there is something called search material. So now when I click this search material, okay, here as well, you have the same kind of, this search material application also created from the same search template only. So that's why you have a search method similar to your material business partner. Okay, and here you have your search criteria. You can search based on material type, material group, and all this stuff. And once you click the search button, you'll get the result. Again, you can create a new material from here. You can copy from the existing material. You can perform mass change document, application status, again, all that stuff. So that means all your search applications in MDG follow the same theme, same behavior. This is one FPM application. In the backend, SAP, these applications are created by taking the templates. So similarly, if I go ahead and create a new material from here, it calls another material creation application. Okay. Now this is again one template. So this is again another FPM template where you will have the data is divided into different sections over here. Okay. Similarly, if I try to create this is for your create template, any object create template. Again, if I go to business partner, from the business partner also, if I try to create a business partner from here, okay, I think there is some configuration is missing. I'll look into this configurations. Okay, but let me do some search. Okay. Okay, so I'll open this application in a display mode. So your master data create, change, display, all these three uses the same template in the backend. Okay, so now this is your business partner display UI. The same UI will be used for create, change, display. So this is also created from the same create template only. So this is for material master, this is for material master, this is for business partner. So everything follows the same thing. So what we do is, let's try to understand some of the elements. What is this? Okay, try to understand the elements within this FPM application, and then we try to create one new application. So whatever we are going to create a new application for our custom data model, that look like exactly the same. Okay, so that's how we create one UI application brand new without writing any code. And after that, in your real time requirements, when you are working on the standard and BP data model, you will be extending these UI applications to include your custom attributes or custom entity data and all that stuff. So that comes under your UI enhancement. So we will discuss both creation of an UI application, how to extend an UI application. In both the cases, we don't write any code. Everything will be through configurations only. Okay, so that we will see.